The number of international students coming to the United States is booming. Here are some quick facts. In the year 2022, there were over 1.3 million active international students in the United States on some type of US student visa status. These students come from virtually every country in the world and are actively engaged in all levels of education, from primary education to higher education. Though the vast majority of international students are concentrated in higher education, mostly pursuing master's and bachelor's degrees. So if you'd like to be part of the growing number of international students coming to the US in 2024 and beyond, in this video, I'm going to tell you about the different types of US student visas that you can obtain to study in the US and the advantages of each of these visas. The first and most common type of student visa for international students coming to the US is the F1 visa. In order to apply for the F1 visa, you would need to obtain a Form I-20 from a university. Getting this Form I-20 though would require you to show evidence of sufficient financial support to cover your first year of studies, which could come from sources like personal funds, family funds, or fellowships and scholarships obtained from your university or organization. So what if you don't have the personal or family funds to cover your US education? Well, if you're here, you're in luck because I have a special gift for you. If you're struggling to find ways to fund your international education, you can discover the secrets that allowed me to fund my education in the US, covering hundreds of thousands of dollars in my exclusive course, which you can sign up for at sojournerscholar.com/funding. In this course, you will learn the strategies and resources I and many international students have utilized to make your educational dreams in the US come true without breaking the bank. So don't miss this unique opportunity to learn how you can make your own study abroad dreams come true. So go to sojournerscholar.com/funding, linked in the description section below to sign up today. Once again, that's sojournerscholar.com/funding. One thing you should know about the F1 visa is that you must be enrolled full-time at an academic program of study, which could be at a school, a college, or a university. And when you enter the US on an F1 visa, you're typically allowed to remain in the US for as long as it takes for you to complete your program of study. Now, what's really great about the F1 visa is that it allows you to work before and after the completion of your studies. Now, this could be through employment options such as on-campus employment, curricular practical training or CPT, and optional practical training or OPT. And if you want to discover smart hacks you can use to get the most out of these employment options as an F1 student, check out my funding master course link below. The F1 visa also allows you to bring your dependents such as your spouse and your children to the United States using the F2 visa class. And they can remain with you in the US for as long as your program of study. However, your dependent spouse on the F2 visa is not allowed to work in the US, and you are required to show proof of funds to cover the cost of living expenses for all your dependents. Now, the other type of US student visa is the J1 visa. Now, the J1 visa is given to individuals who are approved to participate in work and study-based exchange visitor programs. In the US, international students are allowed to pursue studies under the J1 visa program at secondary schools, colleges, and universities. But unlike the F1 visa, in order to be eligible for the J1 visa, you must be sponsored by a university, a private organization, or a government program. And unlike the F1 visa, the J1 visa has a strict financial qualification criteria, which requires more than 50% of your financial support for the entire duration of your studies to come from an outside source, such as a fellowship, a scholarship, or government sponsorship. Another limitation of the J1 visa is that in most cases where the sponsorship of your J1 visa comes from a government program, there will be a 2-year home country requirement after the completion of your studies. This means that when you're done with your studies, you will need to return to your home country for a period of 2 years before you can transition to a US visa for temporary workers, or before you can become a US permanent resident. Like the F1 visa though, you're allowed to remain in the US for as long as it takes you to complete your program of study. And you're allowed to work before and after the completion of your studies. Not surprising, J1 visa holders are allowed to bring their dependents such as spouses and children to the US using a visa class called the J2 visa. But what's cool about this J2 visa class is that unlike the F2 visa class for dependents of F1 visa students, J2 visa holders are allowed to seek employment in the US. Then you have the M1 visa, which is for students in non-academic programs of vocational studies. These students typically receive hands-on training that prepares them for work in their chosen field. Most M1 students in the US pursue education in aviation or religious schools. Unlike the F1 and the J1 visa, international students on the M1 visa are usually admitted to the US for a period of 1 year, but you may extend your duration of stay in the US for a maximum period of 3 years, just like the F1 visa. And just like the F1 visa, in order to apply for an M1 visa, you must obtain a Form I-20 from your prospective school, which will require you to show proof of funds to cover your entire cost of study. Unlike the F1 visa though, international students on an M1 visa are not allowed to work before the completion of their studies, but you can work for a short period of time after the completion of your studies.